They say the most dangerous people in the world don't look dangerous at all. They blend in. They pour your water. They smile at your rude remarks. They tuck their scars under a stained apron and disappear into the background of your life. She was one of those people. Her name was Liam. And on the night everything changed, she was just a waitress. Music shifts, a single heartbeat, then silence. But in the next 60 seconds, she would shoot 3 trained assassins, save the most powerful and feared man in Seattle, and ignite something between them that neither of them would ever be able to undo. Stay with me. Because this story, it starts in the middle of a bullet. Seattle in the rain is not romantic. It's gray. It's cold. It smells of salt water, car exhaust, and old ambition. Liam knew this city the way only desperate people do, not from postcards, but from back alleys, overnight bus rides, and the specific shame of counting your tips in a restaurant bathroom because you're afraid of what the total might be. She was 27 years old, with high cheekbones that belonged on a magazine and eyes that belonged to someone twice her age. Someone who had seen things. Someone who had survived things she refused to name. She had been a waitress at the Gilded Lily for exactly 6 weeks, long enough to memorize the menu, short enough that no one had asked for her real ID yet. That was by design. Because Liam wasn't just hiding from poverty. She was hiding from a past that would kill her if it ever found her. Open book, the story begins. The Gilded Lily was the kind of restaurant that made ordinary people feel small. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's cars. A menu where a single plate of hand-pulled pasta ran $62, and nobody blinked. Philip, the maitre d', was a small man with an enormous sense of his own importance. He had a habit of snapping his fingers near Liam's face when she moved too slowly, which, according to Philip, was always. "Table 4 needs water, Liam," he hissed on this particular Thursday night, his lip curled like she was something he'd found on the bottom of his shoe. "And tuck in your shirt. You look like you crawled out of a dumpster." "On it, Philip," she said, her voice completely flat. She adjusted her apron and turned away before he could see her hands trembling. She wasn't trembling because of Philip. She was trembling because she needed this job. And needing something had a way of terrifying her more than anything else. It was her 3rd job in 6 months. When you're trying to disappear, staying in one place too long is a death sentence. But the Lily paid cash tips, and no one had asked for documentation. Not yet. She carried the water pitcher toward table 4, doing what she did best, making herself invisible. She almost managed it. Then the black SUVs arrived. 3 of them. Armored Cadillac Escalades with windows tinted darker than midnight, pulling up outside the restaurant with a quiet arrogance that told you everything. Men who needed this kind of protection didn't worry about parking tickets. The front door opened, and the temperature in the entire room seemed to drop. Adrian Cross walked in. Liam froze near the service station, pitcher in hand. She had served celebrities. Tech billionaires who wore hoodies worth more than her monthly rent. Politicians who smiled for everyone and meant it for no one. But this man, Adrian Cross, was something different. He didn't walk like a man who had power. He walked like a man who was power. Like the city had been built around him and he was simply returning to the center of it. He was tall, broad-shouldered in a charcoal bespoke suit that moved with him like a second skin. Dark hair swept back from a face that was angular and cold and devastatingly handsome in the way that dangerous things often are. His eyes, steel gray, moved across the room with the quiet precision of a surveillance camera. Every face assessed. Every exit noted. And then, for just 1 second, those eyes found Liam. A jolt ran down her spine. Primal. Instinctive. Warning. Then he looked away. She was furniture. She was nothing. Good, she told herself. That's what you want. He settled into the private alcove with his 4 men, 2 bodyguards built like reinforced doors, and 2 older advisors in expensive silence. Philip nearly dissolved into a puddle of compliments. Water. Now. One of the guards grunted in Liam's direction without looking at her. She approached the table with her head down, employing the technique she had spent 3 years perfecting. Be invisible. Be nothing. Be the wallpaper. She poured the first glass. The men were speaking in low, deliberate tones. Shipment from the docks was light. Someone's skimming. I know, Adrian's voice, low, smooth as aged whiskey, edged like broken glass. We'll find them. And when we do, I want them to serve as a lesson. Liam set down the second glass. Her wrist brushed his sleeve. It was barely a touch. A ghost of contact. But his hand shot out like a trap, fingers closing around her wrist with iron precision. The bodyguards were half out of their seats. Liam's heart lurched into her throat. Adrian looked up at her. And then his eyes dropped, not to her face, but to her hand. To the calluses on her palm. To the long, jagged scar running down her index finger. It was not the hand of a waitress. It was the hand of someone who had been through something that left marks. A long, terrifying silence. Sorry, Liam whispered. I didn't mean to. He released her. Slowly. Watch yourself, he said. She retreated to the kitchen. She stood over the sink and breathed. Stupid. 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 She had been noticed. By him. She didn't know yet that being noticed by Adrian Cross was the least dangerous thing that was about to happen to her tonight. Because 1 hour later, 4 men in long coats would walk through that front door. They would not be there for a meal. And the choice Liam made in the next 30 seconds, a choice her body made before her mind could stop it, would drag her out of the shadows she had spent 3 years building. And into the center of a war she swore she'd left behind. The knot in Liam's stomach never loosened. Even as the restaurant filled up, the clink of silverware, the practiced laughter, the wealthy performing their ease for each other, she felt it. A wrongness in the air. The way the sky feels before lightning. She was at the bar, counting her tips in small, careful piles, when the front door opened again. No SUVs this time. No fanfare. Just 4 men in long trench coats, shaking rain from their shoulders, moving without waiting to be seated. They didn't look at Philip. Philip was invisible to them. Which meant they had not come here to be impressed by chandeliers and $60 pasta. Liam's eyes narrowed. Their coats were unbuttoned at the hem, a deliberate choice, she knew, allowing unobstructed access to a holster at the hip. They moved in a diamond formation. Military or mercenary. She'd seen it before, in a life she had tried her hardest to bury. They were moving toward the alcove. Toward Adrian Cross. Liam's eyes cut across the room. Adrian was laughing at something, a rare, unguarded moment. His bodyguards were distracted. One was checking his phone. The other was signaling the waiter for the check. They chose the moment perfectly. Time slowed down. It always did, in moments like this. The world turned to syrup. Sounds became muffled. Details became razor-sharp. The glint of the suppressor under the lead man's coat, the deliberate spacing between the 4 as they fanned out to cover the exits. Liam screamed. She didn't plan it. The word tore out of her before she could stop it. Gun. It shattered the restaurant's perfect ambience like a stone through glass. Adrian's head snapped up. His bodyguards moved, but too late. They had grown soft on routine, fat on the comfort of a man who had not been challenged in years. Thip. Thip. 2 muffled shots. The bodyguard on the left dropped with a hole in his forehead. The one on the right took a round to the throat, crashing backward across the table in a spray of wine glasses and white linen. Pandemonium. Screaming. People hurling themselves under tables, chairs toppling, women running for the exits. The assassins were professionals. They didn't flinch. They fanned into a kill box, cutting off every angle. Adrian overturned the heavy oak table for cover, but he was unarmed. He had checked his coat at the door. A man accustomed to the protection of others. And now he was trapped, pressed against the wall with nothing between him and the lead assassin, a man with a scar through his eyebrow, stepping over the dead bodyguard with absolute calm. He kicked the table aside. He raised the suppressed HK VP9. It's over, Cross, he said. There was no anger in his voice. No theater. Just the business of ending a man's life. The Volkovs send their regards. Adrian looked him in the eye. He didn't beg. He had never begged for anything in his life. He simply glared at the man who was about to kill him, proud, furious, and utterly cornered. Liam was crouched behind the service station, 10 feet away. Every logical, survival-honed cell in her body screamed at her, run. Back door. Alley. Disappear. This is not your war. And then she saw it. The dead bodyguard's Glock 19, half hidden beneath the Persian rug where it had slid from his jacket. 5 feet away. The assassin's finger was tightening. There are moments in life that define you, not because you choose them, but because your hands move before you can think. Liam lunged. She hit the polished floor on her knees, friction burning through her jeans, and slapped her palm onto the grip of the gun. Cold. Heavy. Familiar in a way that made her want to cry. Hey! The assassin turned his head, just a fraction, just a reflex, and in that half-second of hesitation, Liam raised the weapon in a two-handed grip, exhaled once, and fired. Bang! 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 3 shots. The first caught him in the shoulder, spinning him. The second hit center mass. The third found his neck on the way down. He was dead before he touched the floor. The room erupted. The other 3 assassins spun toward her, and on their faces was the one expression professionals are never supposed to show: shock. The waitress was a player. Get down! Liam screamed at Adrian. He dropped flat. Bullets chewed through the wall above his head. Liam rolled behind the bar. Glass exploded above her. She checked the mag 12 rounds. She could hear the assassins repositioning, cutting off angles, coordinating. Professionals. Moving fast. Who the hell is that girl? One of them yelled. Kill her. Kill them both. Adrian's voice came from across the room. Throw me a weapon. A little busy. Liam snapped. She popped up, fired twice, forced them behind a pillar. Dropped back down. Kitchen, she shouted. Go through the kitchen. Now. I'm not leaving without you. Adrian roared back. For one absurd, adrenaline-soaked second, she almost laughed. You want to die here. She saw movement in the curved reflection of the espresso machine, flanking, left side. She spun, fired blind around the corner. A cry of pain. Connected. Move, cross. It was the voice she had spent 3 years burying. Not a waitress. Not a ghost. A soldier. Now. He moved. She covered him the whole way, walking the trigger, keeping the remaining assassins pinned, until he burst through the kitchen's swinging doors. Then she was up and running. She burst into the kitchen. Cooks cowered in corners. Adrian was at the knife rack. Back door, Liam panted. The alley runs to 5th. Less traffic. Adrian looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time, he saw not the waitress, not the uniform, not the furniture. He saw the way she held the gun, finger off the trigger until needed. The squared shoulders. The eyes that were already calculating the next exit. Who are you? He breathed. The girl who just saved your ass, she said. Now move. They kicked through the back door and spilled into the cold, wet night. The alley was dark. The sirens were distant. They were alive, for now. And standing in the rain together, soaked and trembling with fading adrenaline, something shifted between them. The most powerful man in Seattle. The ghost in the apron. 2 strangers. Each hiding something enormous. And neither of them able to walk away. The black sedan at the end of the alley hadn't come for a rescue. And Adrian Cross, king of this city, feared by everyone, grabbed her hand and said 4 words she hadn't heard in 3 years. No. We fight together. She had given him everything tonight. Her cover, her past, her hands drenched in someone else's blood. All to save a man she didn't know. A man who now refused to let her go. Open book, the story concludes. The black sedan didn't just stop. It prowled, tires crunching over broken glass, headlights sweeping the alley like searchlights. The passenger window came down. The muzzle of an MP5 followed. Get down. Adrian shoved her toward a concrete pillar. But Liam didn't hide. She stepped away from the wall. She raised the Glock in both hands, planted her feet in the rain-slicked asphalt, and aimed, not at the gunman, but at the driver. Calm. Terrifyingly, impossibly calm. Crack. Crack. The windshield spiderwebbed. The sedan swerved violently, slammed into a dumpster with a bone-shaking crunch of steel, and stopped. "Move," Liam said. "Are we running?" Adrian stared at the wreck. No. She was already sprinting toward it. "We're driving." She wrenched the driver's door open, shoved the body aside with her foot without flinching, and dropped into the seat. "Get in." He dove into the passenger seat. She had the car in reverse before his door was shut, the tires screaming against wet pavement as she executed a perfect J-turn and launched them onto Fifth Avenue. "Where did you learn to drive like that?" Adrian gripped the dashboard. "Waitress school." Behind them, blue and red. But not police. A black SUV, identical to Adrian's, was ramming through traffic with the single-minded aggression of people who had been waiting for exactly this moment. "They were on the perimeter," Adrian said, jaw tight. "They knew your schedule. Your route." She weaved through traffic at 80 miles an hour. "You have a leak." "I know," he said darkly. "A big one." He reached into the glove compartment. Spare magazine, SIG sour. A flashbang grenade. He almost smiled. Jackpot. The SUV surged up behind them, closing fast, trying a pit maneuver, aiming to clip their rear and spin them out. Liam watched them in the mirror. Her jaw set. Her eyes went very still. "They're going to ram us," Adrian warned. "Let them," she whispered. The SUV's bumper kissed their fender, and Liam slammed the brakes. It was a suicidal calculation. The kind only someone trained to think 3 seconds ahead would even consider. The SUV, traveling at speed, couldn't react. It slammed into them with full force, and the moment Liam felt the jolt, she floored the accelerator. The sudden change in momentum caught the SUV driver completely off guard. The massive vehicle fishtailed, lost traction on rain-slicked asphalt, and spun across 3 lanes, crashing through a bus shelter in a shower of glass and screaming metal. Liam took a hard right. Killed the headlights. Dissolved into the dark. She drove for 20 minutes without speaking, a deliberate maze of parking garages, reversed one-ways, and industrial backstreets that she had memorized with the obsessive precision of someone building an escape plan on day 1. Finally, she cut the engine in the shadow of a condemned warehouse. The silence between them was deafening. Adrian looked at her profile in the dashboard glow. Beautiful, yes, high cheekbones, a sharp jaw, dark hair falling loose from what had once been a tidy bun. But it wasn't her beauty that held him. It was her stillness. Even now, coming down from the edge of catastrophe, she was composed. Contained. Like a coiled spring that had learned to look like a still one. She had cleared a Type 2 malfunction in under a second. She had executed a J-turn and a counterpit under live fire. She had shot 3 professional assassins without closing her eyes once. "You can't go to your safe houses," she said quietly, staring through the windshield. "Why?" "Because if they knew your schedule at the restaurant, they know your real estate. Every house on your list is already compromised." She turned to look at him. Her eyes were exhausted and ancient. "They'll be waiting." He was silent. She was right. "Then where are we going?" She pulled the car down a dead-end street lined with crumbling brick and rusted fire escapes, stopping before a heavy steel door tagged with faded graffiti. "My place," she said. "It's the last address on earth anyone would look for Adrian Cross." A pause. "If you don't like it, you can walk." He looked at the grim doorway. Then at her. A slow smile crossed his face, the first real one she'd seen. Unexpected. Almost boyish beneath all that dangerous authority. "Lead the way, Liam." Her apartment was concrete floors, exposed brick, and almost nothing else. A mattress. A single armchair. A work table covered in disassembled mechanical parts. No photos. No decorations. It looked exactly like what it was, a person's last room before they stopped being a person entirely. She locked 3 heavy deadbolts. She pulled out a military trauma kit. She checked his ribs. Just bruised, she said. You'll live. And then Adrian Cross, a man accustomed to having answers, sat in her armchair in his ruined $1,000 suit and asked the question he'd been holding since the moment she fired that first shot. Who are you? It wasn't really a question. It was an acknowledgement. You are not what you said you were. Neither am I. And we both know it. She stood at the sink, washing gunpowder from her hands, watching the water run grey. My name is Liam. Liam who? Just Liam. He stood. He crossed the room slowly, stopping close enough that she could smell rain and expensive cologne and gunpowder, a combination that shouldn't have been as intoxicating as it was. A waitress who handles a Glock like a Navy SEAL, he said quietly. Who clears a Type 2 jam in under a second? Who knows counter-surveillance driving and keeps a military trauma kit next to her cereal? He stopped inches away. His eyes searched hers. You're going to tell me who you are? She looked up at him. And for the first time in 3 years, she wanted to. I was trained, she said carefully, by people who don't exist, to do things that never happened. And when I tried to stop, her voice caught. She swallowed it down. They made it very clear that people like me don't get to simply leave. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. The Volkovs, he said slowly. They weren't just here for me tonight, were they? She met his gaze. No, she said. They were here for both of us. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. And then Adrian Cross, the king of Seattle, the man who owned this city, who had never in his life needed anyone, reached out and tucked a wet strand of hair away from her face. It was the gentlest thing he'd done in years. Then I suppose, he said softly, we have the same enemy. She looked at him, really looked, and felt the terrifying, impossible warmth of being seen by another person for the first time in so long she'd forgotten what it felt like. That doesn't make us allies, she whispered. No, he agreed, a ghost of a smile at the corner of his mouth. It makes us something more dangerous than that. Outside, the city hummed with its dark, indifferent beauty. Sirens in the distance. Rain on steel. Two people who had spent their whole lives alone, one behind walls of money and power, one behind walls of silence and shadow, standing in a cold apartment, soaking wet, both carrying wounds older than tonight. Neither of them walked away. They say that the people most worth loving are the ones who survived something, the ones who learned to be invisible, because the world wasn't gentle with them. Liam never expected to be seen. Adrian never expected to need someone. And yet here they were. In the dark. Together. If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you that the most extraordinary people are often the ones hiding in plain sight, then let us know in the comments below. Tell me, did you think she would pick up that gun? Or did you think she was going to run? Bell subscribe so you never miss a story. Every week, we bring you tales of love, strength, and the moments that change everything. Thumbs up sign like this video if Liam's courage gave you chills. Speech balloon comment your favorite moment from this story, and tell us, should we continue their story? Because something tells me Liam and Adrian are just getting started. Herb life lesson. Here is what this story quietly teaches us. The most powerful version of you has been forged, not by comfort, but by everything you survived. Liam didn't pick up that gun because she was fearless. She picked it up despite the fear. Her scars, her training, her years of running, none of it was wasted. Every wound became a weapon. Every hard year became a skill. Every silent, invisible moment made her capable of the one action that changed everything. We spend so much of our lives hiding the parts of ourselves that have been broken or sharpened by pain. We think those parts make us unlovable, too complicated, too dangerous to let close. But sometimes, the right person doesn't want you despite those parts. They want you because of them. Don't be ashamed of your scars. Someone, someday, will look at your hands and see exactly what you're capable of.